Hello YouTubers and welcome to another episode of the vlogs. As you can see, we've got some excellent glass behind us for another day at Dorney Lake at the 2012 Olympic rowing venue. Again, it's been a privilege to be here, and welcome to the videos. If you haven't been around for a while, remember to hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already, much appreciated. But today, as you can see from the title, we're talking about the British rowing final trials. Just what it entails. I had a little bit of a chat about that the other day, but now we're talking about what happens, the timings, the races themselves, what's side by side, what isn't. But we'll get to that later on, because first things first, we've got to go get changed, get the boat out and get on that glass for some rowing. Today is a short training day because the taper is in full swing. But let's get to it. Okay, so as we get to putting the boat on the water, what's going to happen today is I'm going to talk about final trials as a whole, and then I'm going to answer some of the questions that were asked on today's Instagram. And look at this water that we get to paddle around on today. Absolutely fantastic. It's been amazing paddling on the water here at Dorney as we push off the dock. And we've made it onto the water. Now it's time to get on the other water and get paddling. And we have made it onto the other water down at the other end of the lake. We've got a gorgeous sunrise today, and Robson and I are just paddling down, trying not to fall in the learn to row pair. But we're going to talk about the British rowing final trials. We're going to start talking about the format. So it's over 2 days, and then the first thing you do in the morning of the first day is a 1900 metre time trial. So it's 1900 metres because at Caversham there's not so much space, so you couldn't really do a 2k time trial, and we want to get that time trial in to seed us for the rest of the weekend. And so on the same day in the afternoon, we use the seedings from the time trial to put us all into the semi-finals. So your AB semi-final, top 12, your CD semi-final, your 12 to 24, etc, etc. And these semi-finals are side by side, so you have 6 lanes, 6 across, side by each, full yam for 2 kilometers down the course. So then the results from that are then taken into day 2. And day 2 is just one race, 1 2k race side by side, and you've got your A final, your B final, your C final, your D final, etc. And that is all determined on the previous day's racing. So that is the format for GB trials. You have your time trial and a side by side race on day 1, usually a Saturday, and then on day 2, on the Sunday, you have one side by side final. So how do you get to trials themselves? So usually it's through the trials process. So I got the trials through doing, I did November trials, I did some trials in December which are invite only to Caversham, and then there were some trials going on in February. But this year is a bit different because the February trials got cancelled due to some horrendous weather, which is usually a 5k row, and that kind of determines usually if you're the top X at February, then you get invited to trials. But that was a bit different this year, so there was a little bit different things going on for invites to trials. But basically the best way to get to trials is to train consistently and then show off your potential when it counts, i.e. at trials. So at trials in November, and hopefully in the November trials you get an invite to December trials, and then after December trials you get an invite to February trials, or you go to February trials, and then all of those performances together give you a sort of, okay, this is my ability, this is my performance, and I should be going to trials because this is how good I am. And so that is really the best way to do it, is prove to the coaches that are watching that you are good enough to be at trials and racing against the best in Britain. So for me, before I came to Leander, I did something a little bit different so I could go to the trials in the summer. Because I was in an American uni, so I didn't come across for like a day or 2 days to trial over the weekend and then fly back over to the States. What I did was be in communication with the coaches at all times, and then being able to talk to them, okay, what what do I need to do to be invited when my university finishes? And usually it was they gave a sort of score for a 2K, a 6K, a 5K, or depending on what their universities were doing. And then you submit your scores to the coaches, they look at your scores and think, okay, that is good enough or bad enough, and then that leads on to more testing when the uni finishes. But last thing before we get on to the questions from the YAM squad, the best thing about trials, I would really say it's kind of twofold. One, you're competing against the best in Britain. You're competing against guys that have been to the Olympics, the guys that have been the best in the world, and you get to compare yourself to them. So you could be in the C final, you could be in the A final, you could be in any of those finals, but you know that, say, you're in the B final and you're racing against one of the squad pairs, that you know how far, how like the distance you are off of them, and you say, okay, that is my target. And also you know that if you're up at the top of the trials, then you have some serious potential to medal throughout the actual world racing season. But I know that a lot of you aren't necessarily going to be at trials this year, and maybe going for next year, or maybe in years to come. And what I really recommend is taking the opportunities that you get, whether that is a trials, an early trials in November, or later trials in February, or it's just a race during the summer against pairs or other boats who have performed well at trials before. It's taking those opportunities to show people in the GB rowing circle that yes, you should be invited to trials. But now we're going to answer some of the questions that were asked on my Instagram story today. A lot of questions regarding the format, a lot of questions regarding how to get to trials, and then what to do if you're an American uni. I thought that they were really applicable, so I answered them anyway. What do you eat on the day of final trials, from Jenny Bates? So I try and eat a lighter diet, and by light I mean nothing that'll sit in my stomach for too long. So lots of easily digestible foods, and nothing too heavy like a big chili. If I'm going to have some meat, I'll have some chicken probably, and then just make my meals really simple. And then during the final days themselves, trying to have lots of sort of simple sugars to give myself some boosts during, especially in between time trial and the semi-final on the same day. Another question from Charlie Bullen: how hard are you going to yam? Well, I'm going to be yamming as hard as I possibly can, is probably the simplest answer to that question. Ari Schechter: what rate do you usually hold for a 2K in the pair? Varies from everyone. We will probably hope to go down the course around sort of 30, 38-ish, maybe even lower than that. What's it like racing your friends? Well, everyone's kind of accepting of the whole situation. Everyone knows that what we're doing, it's like you're not disrespecting your friends by trying to beat them. It's all sort of trying to make a boat go faster. So I wouldn't say that it is difficult, because everyone's trying to do the same thing and everyone's pretty understanding. There's no animosity because of sort of if one friend beats another friend. From Big Bill 721, if anything, how does your preparation change for a high pressure race such as this? I wouldn't say the preparation changes too much, but it's making sure that everything is on point, really. You really make it so for a less high pressure situation, you might think, oh, I've not had the perfect meal, or maybe I haven't slept enough. But for the high pressure situations, I'm really making sure everything is on point and just as fine as possible. So whether that is making sure I've got enough sleep, making sure I'm eating the right thing days before, making sure that I'm not tired the days before, and building up the energy throughout, all that kind of stuff. Really just making sure I'm on point on the day rather than a more relaxed attitude. A lot of questions regarding nerves. I've spoke about nerves before, and I think the nerves are all about understanding your body. So I tend to get less nervous when I'm confident in myself. So what I mean by that is confident in my ability to just go like full yam and not blow up. So I know the pace I want to hold, I know the intensity I want to hold, I know what that feels like, And so when I know that that's going through my head in a race, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, my legs are burning. Well, if I'm used to that, then it's okay. And a lot of questions about sort of what happens to the pairs after trials. So the pairs, usually it's up to the head coach, Jürgen Grobler, to decide where he puts who. So maybe he'll put the top pair as a pair, the next 2 pairs as the 4, and the next 4 pairs as the 8. But it can all vary. He might put pair 2 and 6 together in the 4, and then pair 1, 3, 5 and 9 in the 8. It all kind of depends up to the coach, but you kind of want to just make sure that you've got your best performance out there on the water, so that when the coaches are looking at these results and thinking, okay, that person beat this pair, so then therefore they have to have an opportunity to see what they can do. And that ties into sort of where it goes for me in particular. So we're kind of looking at, we have to do very well, Robson and I, to have a look back into the team for this year, because the team is very set, and basically we have to do very, very well. I'm talking about close to winning trials to be able to go back and train at Caversham, because as the coach has said, there's never a bad winner of trials. So by winning, you're saying, okay, look, I'm doing well here, so let's do something. But then it depends on what's going on in the actual trials itself. So if you were to come 5th, 7th, 3rd, 6th, depends who's ahead of you, depends who's behind you, to see what the coaches kind of think and where, me personally, where they would put me, if anywhere at all. But with trials coming up this weekend, we will soon find out what will happen. And as we finish up the session here on Dorney Lake, we successfully have not fallen in the Learn to Row pair. For trials itself, I'm going to try and film as much as possible without 1, getting distracted, 2, annoying the people at Caversham themselves, and 3, making sure I actually have permission to film the stuff I want to film. The aim is to film at least one of the races, so either one of the side-by-side races or the time trial, put the GoPro on the boat, and then do a sort of thinking over video like I did with the 2K, of thoughts going through the head, even including the calls that I might make to Robson. But we'll see, that is also affected by how we actually do, and also if anyone says that we can or cannot put any footage out there. So fingers crossed, hopefully we will, but I'll obviously ask all the right questions when we're at trials. But the priority is trials and racing as best we can in the Learn to Row pair, and not necessarily the videos. Obviously it'll make some great content for people that can't be at trials, or are in a different country and want to see what it's like, or even just having a look at Caversham itself. But the racing comes first. And now back onto the dock.
Look at that. And we've made it back on the dock for another day. I keep wanting to say another dollar, but
Another day, another dollar.
anyway. Got to get the Crocs on, because Crocs are
Life.
free speed and life. Obviously the same with Oakley's. But obviously no sponsored videos here.
Unless you're from Crocs.
Now unless you're from Crocs, then hit me
Get
up.
in touch.
But hopefully you enjoyed a little bit of a conversation over the rowing on the flat water we had today. So we were working on just pretty much being long as big guys, but the chat was all about trials, which are coming up this weekend. It's coming up so fast, and every session is really important, and we're making percentage and marginal gains. Oh yeah! But that will be it for today's video, Yam Squad. A little bit different, all about that rowing, all about that
Rowing life.
voiceover. But as always, Yam Squad, remember to subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that like button, push that algorithm, and have a good day.